The air in Summit County, Utah, carries a specific weight in early March. It is not the dry cold of deep winter. That has already passed. This is the cold of a season in transition, where nighttime temperatures still press below freezing, but the days have begun to soften, and the gap between those two states creates a kind of atmospheric tension that residents learn to read without thinking about it. The mountains hold their snowpack, the valleys exhale frost, and at 3 in the morning, in a house outside the small town of Camas, the silence is absolute. There is a particular quality to silence that has been interrupted and not yet recovered. It carries the shape of what broke it. In that house on that morning, the silence had been broken hours earlier. What broke it would not be named officially for another year, but it was already in the
Your Honor,
room.
the state moves to admit and publish State's Exhibit 2-40D, the 911 call.
Any objection, counsel?
No objection.
Okay. Scott, let's give this a try.
911, what's the address of the emergency? My husband's not breathing. He's cold.
Somewhere inside that house, a woman picked up a phone. She dialed 3 digits. When the dispatcher answered, the sound that came through was the sound of a person standing at the center of the worst moment of their life, or the sound of someone who had spent considerable time preparing to sound that way. 4 years of investigation, 3 weeks of trial, and 3 hours of jury deliberation would eventually settle which of those two things was true. Her name was Corey Richens, 31 years old, a real estate investor, a house flipper, a mother of 3 young sons. Her husband, Eric, was 39. By the time paramedics reached the house, there was nothing remaining to do. Eric Richens was pronounced dead at the scene. The story that Corey Richens told investigators was structurally simple. On the evening of March 3rd, she had made Eric a cocktail, a Moscow Mule, to mark the closing of a real estate deal, a domestic celebration. Afterward, a child woke with a nightmare. Corey went to him. She slept in the child's room. She returned to the master bedroom in the early hours of March 4th and found her husband motionless. This is a recognizable story. It has familiar contours. Law enforcement encounters this shape regularly. The sudden, unexplained death, the bewildered spouse, the domestic detail that grounds it in reality. The first responders treat it as a medical tragedy, which is appropriate, which is protocol. The medical examiner's findings ended that interpretation. Eric Richens did not die of cardiac failure. His blood contained illicit fentanyl, not pharmaceutical grade, not prescribed, at a concentration 5 times the established lethal threshold. The manner of ingestion was oral. He had consumed it in a liquid or food, and the quantity delivered to his system was not the result of miscalculation. 5 times the lethal dose is not a mistake. It is an outcome. The question that the medical examiner's report placed before investigators was exact and narrow. Who put that substance into something Eric Richens consumed, and when? Everything that followed, every phone record, every bank statement, every text message, every witness, was an attempt to answer that question. To understand Corey Richens, you have to understand the world she was trying to inhabit, and the gap between that world and her actual financial position. Real estate investment in the Mountain West of the 2010s offered something specific to people with a particular kind of ambition. The appearance of wealth could precede wealth itself. You could flip a house, photograph it beautifully, post the transformation, collect the attention, and leverage that attention into the next project before the first one had cleared its debt. The cycle was self-reinforcing as long as the market cooperated and as long as you never stopped moving. Corey moved. She had an eye for properties, a facility with social presentation, and the kind of forward-projecting confidence that the industry rewards in the short term. She built a persona around it, aspirational, industrious, a woman building something. The Instagram version of her life showed renovated kitchens, mountain ski days, and a family that appeared to be thriving. The forensic accountant who testified at trial peeled that image back layer by layer. By 2022, Corey's debt load was estimated at nearly $5 million. She had forged Eric's signature on bank documents and loan applications, not once, not twice, but as a sustained pattern. She had borrowed against assets she did not fully own, taken out lines of credit on properties leveraged elsewhere, and used new debt to service old debt in a way that could not survive any interruption. Eric Richins had seen enough of it to act. At some point prior to 2022, he quietly removed Corey from his will. This is a considered decision, not an impulsive one. A person removes a spouse from a will when they have concluded that legal protection from that spouse is necessary. In the period leading up to Eric's death, Corey had taken out nearly $2 million in life insurance policies on her husband, obtained without Eric's knowledge, some involving documentation bearing his signature that he did not sign. Life insurance fraud is a calculation with 3 variables. The search history on her hidden phone filled in the operational detail. She had researched whether life insurance pays out when a death certificate lists cause as pending. This is not the behavior of a grieving spouse. It is the behavior of a project manager tracking deliverables. Robert Joshua Grossman testified about the affair under oath. Text message records documented it. None of this on its own is evidence of a crime. What elevated Grossman's testimony was a specific exchange in the message record. In the course of their communication, Corey asked him a direct question. "Have you ever killed anybody?" The defense argued this was hyperbole, dark humor. This is a plausible argument in isolation. The problem is that this message did not exist in isolation. Grossman also testified about Corey's stated desire to be with him without the constraint of her marriage. The framing, according to testimony, was not that she wanted a divorce. It was that she wanted Eric out of the picture. The specific language matters legally because it speaks to intent and direction. Eric Richins, meanwhile, was telling people what he believed was happening to him. Multiple witnesses would later testify that in the weeks before his death, he had expressed, in direct terms, a fear that his wife was putting something in his food. He identified his own risk. He communicated it. The system around him did not move fast enough. The prosecution's most structurally significant argument was not about the night of March 3rd. It was about everything that preceded it. Because if the evidence of prior incidents is credible, and the jury found it credible, then what happened to Eric Richins was not a single event. It was the terminal event in a sequence, the Greece incident. At some point before 2022, during a trip abroad, Eric became severely ill after consuming a drink Corey prepared. It was attributed to food or water at the time. No one investigated it. In hindsight, investigators treated it differently. The pattern of oral ingestion, the acute onset, the recovery without formal medical intervention. The word prosecutors used was practice. Valentine's Day 2022 is harder to contextualize. On February 14th, 18 days before Eric's death, Corey gave him a sandwich with a handwritten love note attached. Within a short time of eating it, Eric experienced a severe allergic reaction. Hives, airway constriction, acute systemic distress. He was forced to use his young son's EpiPen to stabilize himself. He survived. He also told a friend afterward what he believed had happened, not as a complaint, but as a direct assessment. He believed his wife was trying to harm him through food. This was said weeks before March 4th, before any investigation, before any toxicology. Eric Richins effectively pre-testified about his own cause of death. Carmen Lauber was the family's occasional housekeeper. Between December 2021 and late February 2022, she became the source of the substance that would kill Eric Richins. She testified under a grant of immunity. Her account was specific and dated. She provided Corey with pills on multiple occasions. In early February 2022, Corey made a request Lauber found distinctive enough to remember verbatim. She asked for the Michael Jackson stuff, a reference to propofol, the anesthetic that gained public recognition following the 2009 death of the entertainer. Corey told Lauber the pills she had been receiving were not strong enough. Approximately 2 weeks before Eric's death, Lauber supplied fentanyl pills. The chain is now traceable from origin to outcome. Fentanyl sourced through Lauber, transferred to Corey at her specific request, and delivered, most likely through the Moscow Mule cocktail, to a man who had told multiple people he was afraid of exactly this outcome. Digital forensics has transformed criminal investigation by making available a category of evidence that previously did not exist. What a person searches for in private, on a device they believe is personal, constitutes a record of cognition. It is not a record of action, but it is a record of mental territory. Corey's account to investigators stated that on the night Eric died, her phone was charging in another room and she had been asleep. The phone records did not support this. Data showed activity during the precise window she described as sleep. The phone was unlocked, messages were composed, and messages were deleted. The deletion in that specific window indicates an active effort to shape the record. Someone who is asleep does not delete messages. Prosecutors found a second iPhone in her bedside drawer, the drawer immediately adjacent to where Eric lay. This device had not been offered to investigators. It was discovered during a search. On it, in its own search history, the lethal dosage threshold for fentanyl, whether law enforcement can recover deleted iPhone messages, whether life insurance pays out when a death certificate is marked cause pending, and information about minimum security correctional facilities for individuals of means. That last query requires specific attention. A person who researches livable prison options is modeling their own future under an adverse scenario. They have moved past denial into contingency planning. They are asking, if this ends badly for me, what does that look like? This is not panic. This is not impulsivity. This is project management applied to the prospect of being caught for a crime already decided upon. The search history recorded both the fear and the continuation simultaneously.
KPCW News Time now, 8:30. Good morning, I'm Leslie Thatcher. It's the KPCW Local News Hour. Well, just more than a year ago, Corey Richins and her 3 young children lost their husband and father unexpectedly. No doubt a very challenging time for all. And it was also the genesis for Corey to write a book to help other young families deal with death. She joins me now in the studio. Good morning. And so sorry to hear about your loss.
No, thank you. I appreciate it very much. It's been a long year, difficult year. And kind of writing this book has brought a little peace to me and my boys.
So take us back to last year. I mean, you've told me it's a rough go, and you felt a bit helpless as you were helping trying to get your kids to heal.
Yes, exactly. So my husband passed away unexpectedly March 4th of last year. And, as we were kind of going through the trials and navigation of different feelings and emotions, we, kind of just sat, and at the same time we were looking for different resources to help us. Like, we've obviously never been through this. My kids have never been through this. So, nighttime readings are big for us. And so we kind of started looking through Barnes & Noble and Amazon and things that can kind of comfort, us through the nights during, and we just could not find anything that really was relevant for my kids and for our situation. And so, we're just like, well, let's write our own. So a lot of it is, questions that actually come from my kids. Is Dad with us when we're in, during birthday parties or Christmas, or, is Dad with us because they're going through the sadness of knowing that it's just, he's not here presently, right? So we wrote this book, and we're really hoping that it provides some comfort for not just obviously our family, but other families that are going through the same thing.
And that's the title of the book. Are you with me?
Yes. Yep. Correct.
Yeah.
So
In March 2023, exactly 1 year after Eric's death, before any arrest had been made, Cowrie Richins self-published a children's book. It was titled, Are You With Me? It centered on her son's experience of losing their father, framed as a resource for children navigating grief. She appeared on local radio and television, describing the writing process as a source of peace for herself and her boys, a meaningful way to channel the difficulty of the previous year. The image was carefully composed, a widow who takes her pain and makes something useful from it, a mother who protects her children's emotional lives even while managing her own loss, a woman who is healing publicly in the Utah community where she lives. This is a recognizable archetype, one that generates sympathy and a specific kind of moral credentialing. It positions the subject as someone whose interiority is oriented toward good. It makes other narratives harder to imagine. That was the function. The prosecution presented evidence that Cowrie had not written the book. Text message records and communications indicated that the grief memoir, the most intimate public artifact of her stated mourning, had been authored by a ghostwriter. The grief was contracted out. The performance was scripted by someone else and then delivered by Cowrie in television interviews as though it were her own. It reframed the book from an act of grief into an act of management. The grieving widow was not just performing for television. She was performing for the investigative record. The trial opened in Park City, Utah in February 2026. Jury selection extended from approximately February 10th through the 18th. 8 days, reflecting the saturation of pre-trial publicity and the care required to find jurors capable of evaluating evidence rather than confirming an existing judgment. The prosecution began where the case began. The 911 call.
My husband's not breathing. He's cold.
Okay, what's the address?
282 Willow Court.
282 Willow Court.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what's a good phone number in case we get disconnected?
435 671 1987.
Okay, is this going to be in Francis?
Uh-huh.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
I don't know. I just came in. I was sleeping with my kids.
Okay, I can't understand you. I need you to take a deep breath. What's going on?
I don't know. I was sleeping in with my kids. I just came in our bed, and I turned over, and he's just cold. He's just cold.
Who's cold?
My husband. I turned the light on.
He's not breathing? He's not breathing?
No.
I need you to confirm it for me. Is he not breathing?
No.
Okay, can you do CPR?
No. I don't know how.
You don't know. I'm going to tell you how to. Are you willing to do CPR?
Yeah.
Okay. If there's a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
No, there's
You have one
not.
available? Okay. I'm sending the paramedics to help you now. Stay on the line and I'll tell you exactly what to do next, okay? Okay, are you right by your husband right now?
Yeah, he's so pale. His mouth is
Okay.
open.
Okay, listen carefully. Are you able to lay him on the floor or the ground on the ground?
I'm just shaking. I can't touch him. I can't.
You can do it. You can do it. You need to calm down,
He's
okay?
just yellow.
We need to help them.
And white.
I can guide you through CPR. Take a deep breath for me. I'm here with you.
He doesn't have a pulse.
He doesn't have a pulse.
No. There's no pulse.
Okay.
think I was just gonna do it.
I'm here with you. We need to get him help. If you need to put me on speaker, put me on speaker. I'm gonna guide you through CPR, okay?
Okay.
Tell me when you've done that.
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay, he's on the floor.
He's on the bed.
Okay, are you able by any chance to move him on the floor?
Let me check. Spots on it. I don't know what's happening.
Okay. I'm here with you. Are you not able to? You're not able to move him to the floor.
Go out. Don't come in here. Oh my God, my sister.
You're not able to move him to the floor. Just listen carefully. We just need to get him on the floor. Don't worry about hurting them.
No, he's just too heavy.
Is he still on the bed?
Yes.
Okay. If there's a sheet or a blanket under them, can you loosen it from the mattress?
Yes.
Okay. Stand at the side of the bed closest to them and remove anything under their head.
Okay.
Okay. I need you to pull the sheets towards you and slide them off the bed. Don't worry about him falling. We just need to help him now.
Okay.
Tell me when he's on the floor.
I can't move it. It's a dead weight. Like it's just...
You're not. If he has sheets under, pull them to the floor. Don't worry about hurting him.
Can you please send somebody?
Okay, I have the ambulance that's on the way. Okay, there's another way to do this, okay? Grab their feet. Grab his feet.
Okay.
Slide them towards you until they're just off the bed.
Okay.
How old is your husband?
39.
39?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, were you able to go ahead?
Other than his asthma.
Yeah, I mean, it's Lyme disease, but I mean, it takes some time. Medicine for it.
What does he take? What medicine does he take? Can you find it and tell us?
Okay.
Hey guys. And on downtime, Denise is closest we got here. He's had 2 Eppies of Narcan. 2 Eppies, 1 Narcan. Blood sugar is 458.
Tammy, you want to come out here?
No history. Chest pain when he went to bed.
What's your first name? What's your first name? Yeah, let me talk to you out here for a second. Let them do their work in there. So what happened today? When you say we were fine, what time did you see him when he was alert?
We had a drink together at 9 to celebrate something at work tomorrow.
Okay.
We went to bed. I went to bed with my kids. He went to bed in our bed.
What time did you guys go to bed?
9:30.
9:30? Okay.
9:45.
And then what alerted you to him today, right now?
When I just woke up, when I sleep with my kids, I'll wake up and I go back in my own bed. And I just crawled over on his side.
And he was laying in bed? Okay.
He was on his back on the bed, and
Okay. And you said he was on his back? Okay. Where are your children now?
to sleep in that room. 2 are awake with their ear to the door. I don't want them to come out. Please don't make them come out.
Where are the other 2 at that are awake?
In the hallway bedroom.
And where's that at?
There, first one to your left.
Okay. Is there any family members we can call right now?
Yeah, I need to call my mom. I need to call my mom so bad.
Okay.
I think I don't know. 911's still on the phone. They got me. I don't know.
Here. Okay.
I call my mom.
Yep. I'll give you a phone right now, okay?
I need to call his dad. He's gonna be okay, right? Like I got in bed and then I just got.
Yeah, they're doing their best, okay, ma'am? Here, you can use my phone.
Mom.
Yes?
Go to my house. Go to my house.
What's going on?
I don't know. Something's wrong with Eric. The police came after him through here. It's like, I don't know what's happening. He wasn't breathing. I don't know.
Who?
Eric.
Where is he at?
My house. My house.
I'm on my way.
I think my partner found your phone. Is this it right here? Does he have any medical conditions or anything like that?
He has Lyme's disease.
Lyme's disease?
Nothing major. Like,
Okay. So no heart problems or anything like that?
no, he just said his chest was hurting when he went to bed, but that's, not, if he doesn't drink enough water, when he gets on the bike downstairs, I don't know, it didn't make sense. And then he just said he was really tired because he got his allergy shots yesterday morning.
Okay.
With my son, they so much. I don't.
And then when did you discover him? What time?
I got my phone. It was maybe 3.
About 3.
3:15.
Did you immediately call the 911?
Yeah, well, I got up and, as soon as I turned over and he was cold, I just felt like something was wrong. So, I just put the blanket on it because I just thought it was cold. So I just, and then I sat there for a minute and I just didn't feel like it's like breathing or anything. And so I just, oh my God.
Okay.
Eric, and he just felt so heavy.
Any COVID or anything like that?
We all just got over COVID.
Okay.
We all positive
And when was that?
a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so not recently.
Well, he had a negative test. So I was the last positive, and then he had it. So his last negative test was a week ago.
Okay. Hey, ma'am, what's your name?
Corey.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Corey.
With a C?
No, K. Oh, you are right.
Systematically, jurors were shown why that presentation did not match the forensic record. Carmen Lauber described the supply chain. The forensic accountant walked through the debt structure, the forged signatures, the insurance policies. Friends testified about Eric's expressed fears. Robert Grossman testified about the affair, the text messages, the question about taking a life. The digital forensics expert addressed both phones, the sleep window, the deletions, the second device in the bedside drawer, the search history displayed in a courtroom where 12 strangers read it for the first time.
Corey Richins, her husband, Eric Richins, and their 3 children, 9-year-old Carter, 7-year-old Ashton, and 5-year-old Weston, are at their home in Camas. Eric Richins lived for his 3 boys. At 7:22 p.m., Corey Richins' boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, texts Corey Richins an image of 2 people romantically kissing. The image is captioned, "Love you." At 8:36, Corey Richins replies, "Love you." The boys go to bed. Corey Richins makes Eric a drink and takes it to him in their bedroom. He drinks on the bed. She departs the bedroom. Corey Richins returns to the bedroom at about 3:00 a.m. She feels that Eric is cold. She nudges him. He does not respond. She sees that he is stiff and pale. His mouth is wide open. At 3:06 a.m., Corey Richins unlocks her cell phone. She travels 243 feet beginning at 3:08 a.m. She unlocks her cell phone again at 3:10, 3:15, and twice at 3:19. At 3:21, Corey Richins unlocks her cell phone and calls 911. Paramedics respond, but they are unable to revive Eric. He has no pulse. He is cold. They pronounce him dead at 3:58 a.m. on March the 4th, but they think he has been dead a while. My name again is Brad Bloodworth. I am one of Summit County's criminal prosecutors who, along with Lindsay Shervanack and Fred Burmester, will present to you the state of Utah's aggravated murder case against Corey Darden Richins for causing the poisoning death of her husband and the father of her 3 children, Eric Richins. The state will also prove to you that 2 weeks before murdering Eric Richins, Corey Richins attempted to murder him. And 2 weeks before that, by fraud and forgery, she took out an insurance policy on his life.
Objection, can we approach?
Weeks before attempting to murder Eric Richins, Corey Richins took out an insurance policy by fraud and forgery on Eric's life. And 2 weeks after Eric died, she submitted a fraudulent claim on yet another insurance policy. In this opening statement, I will summarize for you some of the evidence that the state will present over the next few days, perhaps weeks, so that you have a framework to assemble and analyze all of the evidence. The evidence will prove that Corey Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life. More than anything, she wanted his money to perpetuate her facade of privilege, affluence, and success. Corey Richins owned a house flipping business. She would purchase, rehab, and resell homes. She presented herself to friends and business associates as remarkably successful. The evidence will prove that on the day that Eric died, Corey Richins owed over $4.5 million to over 20 different lenders. And she did not have the ability to service that debt because her bank accounts were exhausted and her credit was exhausted. She had been taking out new loans to include payday loans to service existing loans, but her new credit was drying up. In the 5 months leading to Eric Richins' death, Corey Richins overdrafted over 200 transactions, totaling over $300,000. And on the day that Eric died, Corey Richins was scheduled to close on an unfinished and derelict mansion in Midway, and thus take on an additional $3.2 million in debt. She did not have the financial ability to service that debt, to rehab the mansion, or to hold on to it long enough to resell it. The mansion may appear impressive from a distance, but upon close inspection, it is just a facade. On the other hand, on the day that Eric died, his estate was worth over $4 million. And the evidence will prove that Corey Richens believed she would inherit it all. She believed that she would inherit Eric's $2 million interest in a stonemasonry business, an interest that a prenuptial agreement prevented her from getting any part of if they divorced, but permitted her to get all of if Eric died while they were married. She believed that she would inherit the $1 million or so dollar home that they lived in, but that Eric owned separate and apart from her. And she believed that she would benefit from nearly $2 million in insurance on Eric's life, to include the $100,000 policy that she took out a few weeks before he died. Now, for Corey Richens' fresh start at life motive. This motive overlaps with her money motive. She needed Eric Richens' money to get her fresh start at life. The evidence will prove that Corey Richens was chronically unhappy in her marriage. She thought that having children would make her happier, but it did not. She consulted with a divorce attorney in the months leading up to Eric's death. 3 months before Eric's death, Corey Richens booked a $4,000, 5-night, all-inclusive vacation for her and her boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, at the Secrets St. Martin's Resort and Spa in the Caribbean. They were to check in the month after Eric died. 3 weeks before Eric's death, 15 days before Eric's death, 1 day before the charged attempted murder, Corey Richens text messaged Josh Grossman, "If I was divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, you would? I just want to lay on the couch and cuddle you. Watch a murder documentary and snuggle." 5 days after the charged attempted murder and 11 days before the charged murder, Corey Richens text messaged Josh Grossman, "Babe, I miss you. I want you today, every day. Not just sexually, but physically, mentally, every day when I wake up. I do want a future together. I do want you. Figure life out together. If he could just go away, and you could just be here, life would be so perfect. I love you. I don't know what my deal is today. I'm sorry." 9 days after the charged attempted murder, 1 week before the charged murder, Corey Richens text messaged her boyfriend, "I have a crazy dream. You quit your job, I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway and live in the guest house and rent out the huge house as a big event center. $15,000 a day like they charge down the road, maybe $12,000 to stay competitive. And we will just run the event center as our daily job and hang out every day, raise some kids, have a little farm, deal?" Just over 2 weeks after Eric Richens' death, Corey Richens text messaged her boyfriend a link to the Secret St. Martin's Resort and Spa in the Caribbean and asked, "Are we there yet?" 1 month and 5 days after Eric Richens' death, Corey Richens texted, "I think I want you to be my husband one day." Now for the attempted murder charge. Carmen Lauber was a house cleaner who worked for Corey Richens' aunt's house cleaning company. She cleaned Corey Richens' house. She knew Corey Richens for nearly 9 years. Corey Richens knew that Carmen Lauber had a criminal history involving drugs. The evidence will prove that on February the 11th, 2022, 3 days before the charged attempted murder, Carmen Lauber, at Corey Richens' request, purchased illicit pills from a street drug dealer who was a friend of a friend. And she gave those pills to Corey Richens. That street dealer's name is Robert Crozier, and he sold Carmen Lauber the pills at a Draper in Maverick. 3 days later, on Valentine's Day, Corey Richens purchased a sandwich from the Mirror Lake Diner and left it for Eric Richens. She then departed Camas and met up with Josh Grossman an hour away. At 11:33 that morning, Eric texted Corey Richens, "I'm going to lay down for a bit. If I don't start getting better, I'm going to head to the hospital soon." Shortly thereafter, all activity on Eric's cell phone ceased for nearly 90 minutes in the middle of a busy workday. Once activity resumed, Eric Richens called his two best friends. They sounded to him scared, somber, confused, bewildered. A few days after that, Corey Richens asked Carmen Lauber if she could get something stronger. The evidence will prove that on February the 26th, 5 or 6 days before Eric's death, Carmen Lauber, again at Corey Richens' request, purchased pills from the same street dealer at the same Maverick in Draper. And she left those pills at a home that Corey Richens was just finishing up a rehab on. The evidence will prove that those illicit pills contained fentanyl. The autopsy and toxicology report shows that Eric Richens died of fentanyl poisoning. He had several times a lethal amount of fentanyl in his blood and more in his stomach. And that extraordinary amount of fentanyl was intentional, not accidental. The evidence will prove that time and again, Corey Richens tried to cover up her attempted murder and ultimate murder of Eric Richens. When confronted with Eric's reaction on Valentine's Day, Corey Richens text messaged her friend, "It was Valentine's Day, and Eric and I were both working from home that day, and I ordered lunch from Mirror Lake. He never broke out in hives or used an EpiPen. I was fucking with him. Bailey was there too. He said the sandwich hurt his stomach, so he was going to nap. No hives, no EpiPen." Corey Richens was an hour away from Eric Richens with her boyfriend. Regarding the morning of Eric Richens' death, Corey Richens wrote in a notebook that she entered their room at 3:20 a.m. She saw that when she nudged Eric, nothing happened. She grabbed her phone and called 911. She first grabbed her phone at least 3:06 a.m. and delayed calling 911 at least 15 minutes. The evidence will also prove that Corey Richens had a guilty conscience. The morning that Eric died, his family came over. Corey Richens could not face her children or Eric's dad, Eric Richens. She didn't speak to him. A few days after Eric's death, Corey Richens and her boyfriend, Josh, they drove into the Uintas and talked about Eric's death for the first time. Corey Richens asked Josh, "While serving in Iraq, did you ever kill anyone?" When he responded, she asked, "How did that make you feel?" Along the lines of both cover-up and guilty conscience, Corey Richens' text messages and other data from Corey Richens' phone for the 2 months leading up to Eric Richens' death and a week or two after have all been deleted. Police seized that phone. She got a new phone. And on that new phone, there were the following internet searches. Can cops uncover deleted messages iPhone? Can you delete everything off an old iPhone without actually having it? Can deleted text messages be retrieved from an iPhone? How to completely wipe an iPhone clear remotely. How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely. On April the 13th, 2022, about 5 weeks after Eric Richens' death, detectives informed Corey Richens that the autopsy and toxicology results show that Eric died of fentanyl poisoning. Thereafter, searches on her phone include if someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? Women, Utah prison, luxury prisons for the rich in America. Almost a year after Eric Richins' death, when Corey Richins knew the police were investigating her for his death, Corey Richins published a children's book on how to deal with the loss of a parent. And she promoted that children's book on local television and local radio. The state will present to you this evidence and more through a series of fact witnesses, expert witnesses, documents, and Corey Richins' own words. As you evaluate the evidence and you consider it and you weigh it, let me offer 4 recommendations. The first is the evidence will prove that Corey Richins murdered Eric Richins, but also consider the evidence that proves that Eric Richins did not kill himself or die accidentally. The evidence will prove that Corey Richins had the means, motive, and opportunity to murder Eric Richins. But please consider the evidence that proves no one else did. Consider the evidence leading up to Eric Richins' death that proves that Corey Richins murdered him, but also consider the evidence after Eric's death that also proves it. As you evaluate Corey Richins' conduct, consider the evidence that proves that she richly values and trades on her perceived appearance, affluence, privilege, and success. Let me please highlight 2 of the judge's instructions that he just provided. The first is, stay focused on the evidence. What the attorneys say, how they say it, their voice inflection, none of that is evidence. Please stay focused on the evidence. Please take notes. As he said, you will probably only hear from a witness one time, and that is when the witness testifies. At the end of the trial, I'll stand back up here. And in closing argument, we will analyze the evidence. We will apply it to the elements that the judge instructed you on. And the state of Utah will ask you to find Corey Darden Richins guilty of the aggravated murder of Eric Richins, the attempted aggravated murder of Eric Richins, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and forgery. Back for a moment to the morning of March the 4th, 2022. It is 8:30. Medical examiners place Eric's body in a body bag onto a stretcher, and they wheel him out of his home for the last time. His boys are upstairs with their uncle. Corey Richins has not yet told them that Eric is dead, and she won't for a few more hours. The last of the sheriff's deputies leave, crime scene techs, medical examiners, and on Corey Richins' phone, the following 3 images are accessed.
Is your mic on, Ms. Nestor?
Yes.
Can you tap it for me?
We need Katie to be connected.
She is.
Okay.
It's a black screen at the moment. Is that intentional?
On March 12, 2026, the prosecution introduced the ghostwriter evidence, the final reframing of Corey's public persona from grieving widow to calculated performer. On March 13th, the defense rested without calling a single witness. No counter-narrative. On March 16, 2026, the jury returned their verdict after approximately 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts: aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder for the Valentine's Day incident, forgery, insurance fraud.
1. Aggravated murder. We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Corey Richins, is guilty of aggravated murder. We, the jury, unanimously agree that the prosecution has proved the following circumstance or circumstances regarding count 1 beyond a reasonable doubt. the homicide was committed for pecuniary gain, and the homicide was committed by means of the administration of any substance administered in a lethal amount, dosage, or quantity. Count 2, attempted aggravated murder. We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Corey Richins, is guilty of attempted aggravated murder. We, the jury, unanimously agree the prosecution has proved the following circumstance or circumstances regarding count 2 beyond a reasonable doubt. The attempted homicide was committed for pecuniary gain. Count 3, insurance fraud. We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Corey Richins, is guilty of insurance fraud. Count 4, insurance fraud. We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Corey Richins, is guilty of insurance fraud. Count 5, forgery. We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Corey Richins, is guilty of forgery. It's signed by the foreperson. Please have a seat. Madam Foreperson, is this the verdict that the jury reached unanimously?
Yes, it is.
Okay, you may have a seat. Ms. Lewis, Ms. Nestor, do you wish the jury to be polled?
Yes, please.
All right. Folks, I'll ask you the same yes or no question, one at a time, starting on my left, working this way. Front row first. If you could show me your lanyard number as I ask you. Juror number 5, is this the verdict you voted in favor of?
Yes.
Juror number 4, is this a verdict you voted in favor of? Juror number 3.
Yes.
I can't see your name, I'm so sorry. The foreperson, I just need to ask it again, I'm sorry. Juror number 2.
Yes, it is.
Juror number 1.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir. Juror number 8.
Yes.
Juror number 7.
Yes.
Juror number 6.
Yes.
All right. Counsel, is there anything further on this case before the jury is discharged? Mr. Bloodworth.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Lewis.
No, Your Honor.
All right.
There is a house in Midway, Utah, that was supposed to be the Richins family's future. More than 5,000 square feet of planned space, the kind of domestic ambition that photographs well and becomes, in the social media grammar of the Mountain West, a symbol of arrival. The house was never finished. It became instead a monument to the gap between the life Corey was constructing publicly and the financial reality she was concealing privately. In June 2025, before the murder trial was scheduled, Utah prosecutors filed 26 additional felony charges against Corey in a separate case tied to her real estate business. Mortgage fraud, forgery, fraudulent checks, money laundering, communications fraud, and a pattern of unlawful activity charge. Utah's equivalent of a federal RICO statute. Together, the murder conviction and the financial crimes case describe not a single act of desperation, but a person who operated across years in a sustained pattern of fraud, deception, and ultimately violence. A pattern that required constant maintenance and left traces everywhere it went. A project with a target. A project with a timeline. A project that concluded, from Corey Richins' perspective, successfully on March 4th, 2022. And that began to unravel the moment the medical examiner's report came back. There is a document in this case that received less attention than the 911 call, less attention than the search history, less attention than the children's book and its ghostwriter. It was filed in 2023 as search warrant affidavit, a legal instrument used to justify expanded investigative access. It contained something that changes the geometry of the entire story. The affidavit contained a section about Corey Richins' mother. Her name is Lisa Darden. Investigators had found that Darden had previously been in a romantic relationship with another woman. That woman died in 2006. The listed cause of death was an oxycodone overdose. The death had been classified as suspicious by the investigators who reviewed it at the time. No charges were ever filed. The case reached the boundary of what the available evidence could establish and stopped. At the time of that woman's death in 2006, Lisa Darden had recently been named as the primary beneficiary of her estate. The affidavit did not charge Darden. The language was explicitly hedged. Investigators wrote that it was possible. Darden had been involved in planning and orchestrating Eric's death, based on her proximity to a prior suspicious overdose death and her relationship with Khoury. The word possible is the language of a still open question, not a conclusion. Darden was never charged. What the affidavit forces into consideration is whether this is a learned pattern, not in the crude sense of explicit instruction, but in the subtler sense of environmental transmission. A person who grows up in proximity to a situation in which a death by overdose produced a financial benefit, and in which no legal consequence followed, absorbs something about the distance between suspicion and proof, about whether the record catches up with the action. The 2006 oxycodone case and the 2022 fentanyl case share a structure, an intimate relationship, a controlled substance administered to a person inside that relationship, a beneficiary designation waiting in legal documents for the death to make it active. The substances differ, the decade differs, the people differ, the structure does not. Khoury Richins awaits sentencing on May 13, 2026. The charge of aggravated murder carries a minimum of 25 years to life. Prosecutors did not seek the death penalty. She will, with near certainty, spend the remainder of her functional adult life in a correctional facility, possibly one resembling those she researched from a hidden phone in her bedside drawer. Her 3 sons are in the care of others. The unfinished house in Midway sits empty. The 26 financial fraud charges are pending, and Lisa Darden has not been charged with anything. Not in 2006, not in connection with 2022, not with anything at all. The question the affidavit introduced has not been closed. It has only been set aside. In the investigative sense, set aside is not the same as answered. The record will hold that. The Richins case will be discussed for a long time, and it will be discussed because of its specific features. The children's book, the hidden phone, the fentanyl searches, the ghostwriter. These features make it distinctive. They make it memorable. But the features that make it memorable are not the features that make it instructive. The instructive features are the ordinary ones. The debt that accumulated invisibly while a public persona projected the opposite. The insurance policies that required a death to pay out. The prior incidents, each explicable in isolation and devastating in sequence. The man who named his own fear and was not removed from danger in time. The digital record that captured a mind in the process of planning and could not be altered once it was subpoenaed. These are not exotic features. They appear in other cases, they will appear again. What digital forensics has done to the architecture of premeditated harm is not to prevent it. It is to document it in ways that were previously unavailable. The search history does not stop a person from searching. The metadata does not stop a person from deleting messages. What these technologies do is create a record that outlasts the behavior it documents. A record that can be retrieved years after the moment it captures has passed. The question that every case of this type now poses is not whether the evidence exists. It almost always does. The question is how quickly it can be assembled into a coherent case before the person it documents moves on to the next phase of whatever they are planning. In the Richins case, the answer was not quickly enough to save Eric. Quickly enough to convict the person who took him. There is a jurisdiction in the American Southwest, not Utah, not a state that has received coverage for this, where investigators currently hold a financial fraud case that, on the surface, resembles several dozen others filed each year. The suspect is a woman in her late 40s. The victim was her business partner, who died of what was recorded as a cardiac event 3 months after the business's primary accounts were consolidated under her name. The case has not been charged as anything more than fraud. One investigator has requested a toxicology re-examination of stored biological samples from the autopsy. The request has been pending for 7 months. The samples exist. The technology to analyze them exists. The answer, whatever it is sitting in a refrigerated storage unit, waiting for someone to ask the right question, with the right instrument. That story is not finished. If you have appreciated this video, please support us for free by liking and subscribing. Your support encourages us to keep striving to bring you better stories and invest in quality. The 2006 case was never charged. Do you think investigators should reopen it now that there's a conviction? Let us know in the comments.